In the bustling streets of Manila 2 decades ago, a young boy walked barefoot to school every single day. His family could not afford even the simplest pair of shoes, and every step on the hot pavement reminded him of the poverty he was born into. Despite the hardship, the boy carried a spark in his eyes, dreams too big for the small world he lived in. But dreams often need a push, and for him, that push came from an unexpected act of kindness. One morning, his teacher noticed his blistered feet. She asked gently, "Why don't you wear shoes?" With a shy smile, the boy admitted that his family had no money for such luxuries. Touched to the core, the teacher saved from her modest salary and bought him a sturdy pair of shoes. To many, it was just leather and laces, but to him, it was dignity, hope, and the beginning of change. With those shoes, he walked into new opportunities. He studied harder, ran faster, and began to believe he could achieve more. That small gesture ignited a flame within him. He excelled in school, won scholarships, and eventually moved abroad. Step by step, he built a future that once seemed impossible. Years passed. The barefoot boy grew into a successful entrepreneur. His companies expanded globally, and with wealth came influence. But through it all, he never forgot the teacher who first believed in him, the woman who gave him his first shoes when the world had given him nothing. Then came the day of his return. The skies over Manila roared as a private jet landed at the airport. Out stepped the man who once walked those streets with calloused feet. Reporters gathered, curious about his arrival. But his destination was not a business meeting or a hotel. It was a small, aging school where his teacher still taught. When he walked into her classroom, students gasped. With tears in his eyes, he knelt before her and said, "Because of you, I am who I am today." He handed her the keys to a brand new home, a lifelong pension, and a foundation named in her honor to help countless other children. From barefoot to billionaire, his journey was not just a story of success, it was proof that one act of kindness can spark miracles that last a lifetime. 20 years ago in Manila, a little boy walked the streets with bare feet, his soles hardened by dust, heat, and stones. He was poor, shy, and often mocked by classmates who wore neat uniforms and polished shoes. Yet, despite the humiliation, he came to school every day, eager to learn. His dream was simple, to rise above poverty. But like many children in his situation, he lacked the tools to even begin that journey. One day, his teacher noticed him sitting quietly at the back of the classroom, his feet bruised and blistered. She asked softly, "Why don't you have shoes?" The boy lowered his head and whispered, "We cannot afford them." The teacher, though not wealthy herself, made a choice that would change everything. Out of her modest salary, she bought him his very first pair of shoes. Those shoes carried him through school corridors with confidence. They gave him dignity and reminded him every day that someone believed in him. With each step, his determination grew. He studied tirelessly, won scholarships, and eventually earned opportunities that took him overseas. Life was not easy, but he worked relentlessly. Slowly, he built a business empire that spread across continents. Success followed success, and soon, the boy who once walked barefoot had become a man with unimaginable wealth. Yet, deep in his heart, he always carried the memory of a teacher's kindness. Then came the moment of return. A private jet touched down at Manila's airport. The city buzzed with curiosity. Who was this powerful man flying in? Cameras flashed as he stepped out, but his mission was not for fame or luxury, it was to find the teacher who had given him hope. He arrived at the same humble school where he once sat barefoot. His teacher, now older with gray strands in her hair, looked at him in disbelief. Tears welled in her eyes as he walked forward, knelt before her, and said, "Ma'am, you gave me shoes when I had nothing. Today, I return to give you back everything you deserve." In front of students and teachers, he handed her keys to a new home, financial security for life, and a scholarship program in her name to help poor children just like him. The classroom filled with applause, but for him, the greatest moment was seeing her smile. He had returned in a private jet, not to show wealth, but to honor the woman whose kindness changed his destiny. In the heart of Manila, a young boy grew up in crushing poverty. Every morning, he walked miles to school with bare feet, enduring the sharp gravel, hot pavement, and the stares of those who noticed his condition. Despite the pain, he never missed a day. His hunger for education was stronger than his hunger for food, but deep inside, he carried the quiet shame of poverty. One day, his teacher saw him limping into class. She looked down and noticed the raw blisters on his feet. Concerned, She gently asked, "Why don't you wear shoes?" With his head bowed, the boy replied softly, "My parents cannot afford them." The answer pierced her heart. Though her own salary was meager, she decided she could not stand by. That week, she saved what little she could and bought him a sturdy pair of shoes. For others, it was just footwear. But for him, it was everything. When he slipped them on, he felt a surge of dignity. He was no longer the boy who walked barefoot. He felt equal, capable, and worthy. That gift gave him confidence to dream bigger, to push harder, and to believe that his life could be different. Those shoes carried him through school competitions, interviews, and scholarship exams. They became a symbol of hope every time he looked down at his feet. Fueled by gratitude and determination, he excelled in his studies and eventually earned a chance to study abroad. From there, he worked relentlessly, taking odd jobs, starting small businesses, and never giving up on the dream of success. Years turned into decades. The boy who once had nothing now owned companies across the globe. He became a millionaire, then a billionaire. Yet through all the luxury, he never forgot the woman who had changed his destiny with a single act of kindness. One day, he decided to return. Arriving in Manila aboard his private jet, he carried not just wealth but a heart full of gratitude. He went straight to the old school, where his teacher was still working despite her age. When she saw him, she hardly recognized the confident, successful man before her. With tears streaming down his face, he told her, "That simple gift of shoes gave me dignity and belief. It changed my destiny forever." He then presented her with a new home, lifelong financial support, and a scholarship foundation in her name, so no child would ever feel the shame of poverty the way he once did. Her kindness had lit a spark. His success carried the flame. Together, they proved that even the smallest act can transform a life forever. In the busy streets of Manila many years ago, a young boy struggled just to get to school. His family lived in poverty so deep that even basic needs like food and clothing were often out of reach. Every day, he walked barefoot through dust and gravel, enduring pain that most children his age could not imagine. Yet he never gave up. His hunger to learn was greater than his suffering. One morning, his teacher noticed him sitting quietly in class. She glanced down and saw his blistered feet. Her heart ached. She asked, "Why aren't you wearing shoes?" The boy looked down, ashamed, and whispered, "My parents cannot afford them." Though she earned very little, the teacher could not ignore his struggle. With love in her heart, she used her own savings to buy him his very first pair of shoes. It was a small gesture in her eyes, but to the boy, it was life-changing. The shoes became more than just protection for his feet, they became a symbol of hope. Each step he took in them reminded him that someone believed in him. He gained confidence, studied harder, and soon began to excel in school. The kindness of one teacher had planted a seed that grew into determination. Over the years, he earned scholarships, studied abroad, and worked endlessly to build a better future. From odd jobs to business ventures, he faced failures, setbacks, and struggles, but he carried with him the memory of that teacher's kindness. It fueled him to keep moving forward. Eventually, his efforts paid off. He became a successful entrepreneur, creating businesses across the world. From boardrooms to skyscrapers, his name became known as a symbol of resilience and success. But even with wealth, fame, and power, he never forgot the woman who gave him hope with a simple gift. 20 years later, he returned to Manila, not as the barefoot boy, but as a global success. A private jet landed at the airport. Cameras flashed as he stepped out, but his purpose was not to flaunt wealth. It was to honor the teacher who had changed his life. When he walked into her classroom, now filled with younger children, she looked at him in disbelief. Tears streamed down her face as he said, "Your kindness turned me from a poor boy into the man I am today." He then gifted her a new home, lifelong financial support, and launched a scholarship foundation in her name. Her one act of kindness had not only changed a boy's destiny, it had transformed generations to come. In the crowded streets of Manila 2 decades ago, a young boy carried the heavy weight of poverty. Every morning, he walked to school without shoes, his small feet marked with cuts and blisters. Life was harsh, but school was his only escape, a place where he dreamed of something bigger. Yet, even there, he often felt different. His classmates had clean uniforms and polished shoes, while he quietly endured the shame of being barefoot. One day, his teacher noticed him wincing as he walked into the classroom. She asked kindly, "Why don't you wear shoes, my boy?" With downcast eyes, he whispered, "My parents cannot buy them." The teacher's heart ached. Though her own salary barely supported her family, she decided to act. Within a few days, she handed him a small box. Inside lay a pair of sturdy shoes. That moment changed everything. For the first time, he walked with pride. He felt seen, valued, and believed in. Those shoes became more than protection, they were a symbol of dignity and hope. Motivated by her kindness, he studied harder than ever before. He excelled in school, earned scholarships, and eventually found opportunities abroad. Life tested him, but he never forgot the teacher who gave him his first chance to dream. Step by step, he built a career, then a business, and finally an empire. Success came slowly, then all at once, until the boy who once had nothing became one of the wealthiest men of his generation. 20 years later, he returned home. This time, not on foot, but in a gleaming private jet. Reporters rushed to capture the story, but his destination was not a luxury hotel or political office, it was the same small school where his journey began. When he entered her classroom, now filled with curious children, his teacher froze in shock. The boy she once helped was now a man dressed in elegance. His presence commanding respect. Tears filled his eyes as he walked up to her, knelt, and said, "You believed in me when no one else did. Today, I've come back to honor you." In front of everyone, he presented her with the keys to a new home, financial support for life, and a scholarship program in her name to help countless children in need. The classroom erupted in applause, but the greatest moment was the embrace between teacher and student, proof that one act of kindness can echo for generations.